What's going on, everyone? My name is SiahZ, and welcome to my Crossbow Deadeye Ranger build guide. In this build, we're using explosive shot for insane screen-wide clearing, as well as using the last lambent to be able to decimate bosses, doing 20 million damage per second with Composed Requiem. Overall, the build is insanely fun to play, it's off-meta, and super visually pleasing. Before we get into it, if you guys do enjoy these type of videos and you like what I'm doing here on the channel, if you consider hitting a like on the video and a subscribe to the YouTube channel, it does help me out immensely, and it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and in turn, that currently is the best way to support me. I should also be live right now streaming on YouTube and Twitch, blasting through some maps with the build. If you guys want to see that, I'll have the links for that in the description as well as the comment section of the video. All right, let's get right into it. Now we can get into gear. So we are running a rare Gemini crossbow on weapon set 1 with the last limit on weapon set 2. This just allows us basically to have a lot of damage with explosive shot while still having Composed Requiem on weapon set 2 with like a bunch of crit chance and stuff like that to stack into it to do a lot of damage while bossing. Obviously, we get around the sacrifice life and stuff like that because Requiem doesn't do anything like that. So we're just using it for the skill basically because it's really insane and does a lot of bossing DPS. As far as what you want to look for under Gemini crossbows, you want to look for really high lightning damage on there, right? Like T1, T2, T3 isn't even bad. From there, we can go ahead and pretty much guarantee a bunch of other junk on. So what I try to look for is fractured attack speed with like T3, T2, etc. lightning damage added onto there. And then everything else pretty much is going to be guaranteed to roll onto there if you're crafting it. But what you want to look for after that is like gain damage is extra lightning damage, a level to attack skills, chance to gain onslaught with kills and stuff like that with the weapon, and then high percent physical damage roll. I unfortunately on my desecration on prefix got projectiles deal X amount of increased damage with hits against enemies within 2 meters, which is a dead stat here obviously, but even with this being a dead stat, we're still clearing really well and good enough that I really don't even need to reroll. But if I wanted to push for more damage, I would reroll and go for high percent physical damage. If you guys want to have a crafting video on how to craft these rare like bow right for the build, please let me know in the comment section below and I'll look into making something like that. As far as what we want to do for runes, we do want to get the damages extra of all elements because we are running Trinity in the build to get a lot more damage while clearing and while bossing, so do keep that in mind. For the helmet, we are running the Constricting Command Viper cap. Obviously, look for 5 or fewer enemies to be surrounded. This just allows us to have permanent surround. Pretty much for all hit-based builds, this is going to be best in slot. For the gloves, we are running Evasion Energy Shield Hybrid, but like full Evasion, full Energy Shield will work here. You want to look for like lightning damage to attacks, fire damage, cold damage to attacks. All that is going to be really good since we are running Trinity, right? But if you can only roll like fire, lightning damage like I did, is fine. It's good enough. We want to look for obviously attack speed as well on the gloves to be getting more attacks per second with Requiem. This is going to allow us to do a lot more damage. And then if you need to get reses, you can roll that on as well. For the boots, we are running straight energy shield boots. This allows us to get above that like 1,000 energy shield and have a pretty good pull there. Obviously, I just go for move speed, try early res to have the most res as possible to actually be res cap for the build, and that's pretty much what you want to look for in boots. As far as our jewelry goes, we are running a gold amulet. You can run any base amulet here, it doesn't matter. You want to shoot for spirit, a level to projectile skills, then defensive layers like increased energy shield, evasion, increased global defenses, right? Reses, stuff like that. For the anoint, we are running storm charges. This gives us a lot of increased crit chance with increased elemental damage without a crit, which we're obviously always critting. And this just allows the last lambent to have much more crit chance since obviously there's no inherent plus crit chance on the actual crossbow itself. For the rings, we do want to look for fire, cold, lightning damage since we are playing Trinity. After that, you want to look for like intelligence, dex, strength, anything like that you can roll on for attributes, right, that'll allow us to hit those attribute thresholds that we need, since we do need to have a pretty decent high strength with, you know, dex and intelligence. So obviously look for that. Reses as well you can look for. Breach rings are going to be best in slot here if we can roll them. For the belt, we are running ingenuity. This is just going to allow us to get much more bonuses from our rings, allowing them to give more flat damage, right, more attributes, reses, etc. So it's really good here. You could replace this with a headhunter if you have that, but obviously headhunters are still like 40-50 divines, and I don't have the budget to spend on that right now. But headhunter would allow you to get much better clearing, you know, more movement speed, etc. out of the build. As far as the body armor, again, we're just running hybrid evasion energy shield, looking for spirit, reses, and if you can, gain deflection rating, and that's pretty much what we need there on our body armor itself. Like I said, for weapon set 2, we are running the last lambent crossbow, just going for, if you can, level 19 Composed Requiem. Level 20 obviously is best in slot, but it is really expensive. From there, just look for highest physical and attack speed you can in there, and then throw in obviously the damage and extra elements. It'll help us get resonance up with Trinity. Now we can get into the skills. So for Composed Requiem, we do want to run Concentrated Area since it is an AoE skill, so that's 30% more area damage. We're running Overextend here for 30% more critical damage bonus with Pinpoint critical, obviously, because without Pinpoint, we have a pretty low crit chance. And like I said, since last time it doesn't have any inherently crit chance on the crossbow itself, running Pinpoint critical allows us to get a lot of increased crit chance, so that's why we do that. And then finally, we run rapid attacks too to have 25% increased attack speed, since it does allow us to get a lot more attacks per second out with Composed Requiem. For clearing on our explosive shot, what we want to run here is Nova projectiles. This way we shoot out a bunch of them in a circle, and that allows us to have much better clearing. Then we're going to go to Phi 2, since we do have obviously Surround. That is going to give us lucky hits with the skill. Elemental Element 2 to have 25% more elemental attack damage on the skill, which is really nice to help Trinity. And then with Magnified Area, obviously, to have 35% increased AoE of it, since it is an AoE skill, helps with clearing. And then finally, Stoicism 2, because we're never really rolling and stuff like that, plus 20% more damage does help a lot when it comes in terms of damage and stuff like that, and having Trinity uptime. We are running Voltaic Mark. This just allows us to throw it on an enemy to have much more magnitude of shock. With Mark, we're having like 98% think shock magnitude or something like that. We are running Plasma Blast as our main way of shocking an enemy, since obviously we can't like run a wand, right? Since we need to have the 2 crossbows on weapon set 1 and 2. There's no really way to have a wand on there, etc. So Plasma Blast allows us to just charge it, hit an enemy once, and basically they're full shocked and stuff like that. Plus the increased magnitude of shocks inflicted allows us to take minimal increased shock magnitude nodes on the tree to achieve that like 100% shock magnitude effect in this. So we're supporting that with shock, obviously, to have more chance to shock the enemy. Lightning penetration, so we can have 30% lightning pen on the resistances, so this way we can shock them more easily. Overcharge to have 50% more magnitude of shocks inflicted. With cold exposure, so this way when we hit them, since we do have cold on the actual skill itself, we're going to go ahead and throw on that cold exposure, which allows obviously Composed Requiem to do much more damage, and then lightning exposure as well. So Composed Requiem does much more lightning damage, since those are 2 highest values with Requiem. Then we have Elemental Weakness. Go ahead up to your highest level. This is going to allow us to basically reduce the resistances of the enemy, allowing us to do much more damage. We're supporting that with Heightened Curse to have increased magnitude of the curse inflicted, so this way it reduces the resistances even more. Ritualistic Curse to have more area of effect of the skill. Curse Ground to turn it into like an AoE duration skill, and then finally Prolonged Duration to have more obviously duration of the skill, so we don't need to cast it again in a boss fight. Then we get into our auras. So obviously we're running Trinity here. This allows us to have much more elemental damage per resonance. And if you guys don't know how Trinity works, basically you want to kind of balance your damage, right, your elemental damage values to try to be similar, so this way you can have full uptime of all 3. Currently we have uptime of shock and we have uptime of cold. I don't have full uptime of fire. I'm looking into ways of doing that. We have a free skill slot obviously open still, so if you guys have any suggestions there, let me know. Obviously for clearing, we don't really need to have fire uptime. We have way more damage needed with just lightning and cold, but I'd like to get fire for bossing. So again, if you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section below. But as far as what we're doing with Trinity to support it, we're just throwing a cold mastery right now to get another level. There's really nothing else we can throw in here. You could throw in the lineage support gems. They give like plus levels with quality, right, stuff like that, but they are pretty expensive, so that's why I don't have them in here as of right now. As far as our Herald of Thunder, obviously highest level with quality. We are running basically a bunch of cold stuff in here because this is our main way of clearing, to actually have cold uptime of resonance with Trinity and all that junk. So we're going Ember on here since we have a lot of extra damage as lightning. Now we're gonna have a bunch of extra damage as cold on here. Cold Attunement to have even more cold damage. Magnified Area to have more AoE of the bolts coming down. Elemental Armament 2, so this way again we have more elemental attack damage on the skill. With Freeze to have more chance of freezing the enemy and stuff like that, which allows us again to have even more uptime of cold resonance and stuff like that while mapping. Then we have Wind Dancer. This just gives us more evasion rating per stage, so it's 30% more evasion rating, which helps the survivability of the build. We're just supporting Wind Dancer with Blind 2, Pin 1, Poison 3, and Maim. This just allows us to maim, blind, pin, all that junk on hit. I have poison in here just for a little extra damage of it, but you can throw literally anything you want in here. Then finally we have Ghost Dance. This just allows us to, when we get hit, we'll consume a Ghost Shroud to get 7% of our evasion back as energy shield. That's really nice for survivability, and it adds kind of an extra defensive layer to the build, since we do have a pretty high energy shield with evasion pull. Finally, we're going to support that with compressed duration, just have less skill effect duration and stuff like that. And like I said, I have an open skill slot. I'm not really too sure what to throw in here. If you guys have any suggestions on what we could use to have better like fire resonance while bossing to get much more damage, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, I forgot to say, when we're bossing, since on the tree we do have a bunch of increased crit chance with blind on the enemy and stuff like that, we want to take out Nova projectiles and just replace it with blind 2 on explosive shot. So this way we can blind them before going into Composed Requiem to have much more increased crit chance with Requiem Obviously, since we don't have any inherently on the crossbow, like I was saying earlier, having all that increased crit chance from blind allows us to get much more crit chance overall. As for the tree, again, we are going Deadeye Ascendancy, going into point blank, because we do want to be basically point blank to the enemies, so that's 20% more damage with hits and stuff like that. And this munitions to fire an additional projectile. Then we're going to go into Gathering Winds for Tailwind. This gives us a lot of evasion, skill speed, movement speed, etc. So it's really nice there. And then finally, Wind Ward for less damage taken per Tailwind. So at like max Tailwind stacks, it's like 30% less damage taken on that first hit. We're going to be putting on weapon set 1 of these points, going in with less increased movement speed and a blur and all that. It's really nice for the increased movement speed while mapping. Then we're going to be going back in with main points, going up and taking Hone Instincts for the attack speed, coming down and going into the right side into Cooked, because that increased critical damage bonus is pretty insane, not gonna lie. With weapons at 1 point, we'll be taking Escape Velocity for the move speed, as well as Freedom of Movement for the reduced slowing potency and stuff like that of movement skills, so this way we can move around a little bit quicker when using our explosive shot. We'll be coming back down with main points into Stand to Deliver. We have a much more increased crit damage bonus within 2 meters of an enemy, while as having much more increased projectile damage. And since that plays in, we want to be in that 2 meter range with point blank. There's just a lot more increased damage there. Going in with a weapon set 1 points with Frazzled for that increased magnitude of shock. And like I said, this is pretty much the only increased magnitude of shock that we're taking on the tree. Since we are running Plasma Blast, it allows us to get basically 100% shock magnitude. So that's why it's super important to run that. We'll be going back on main points into Maiming Strike. This just gives us a lot of attack damage, plus that 2% move speed is really nice. From there, we're going to be going down into Wildcat, a lot of increased evasion and stuff like that while moving. The dex is nice, but the main reason we take it is just that deflection rating. So this way we have a decent overall deflection on the build. And then we'll be going into Acceleration for the increased move speed, and skill speed is kind of nice. We'll be going down all the way and heading up into here, going into like Spray and Pray. This allows us to have much more increased attack damage while moving. So this way, when you're using Compose Requiem, you want to try to be like, moving, stuff like that to get that increased attack damage. Plus the reduced movement speed penalty from using skills while moving is pretty nice as well for Explosive Shot. And then with weapon set 1 points, we will be going down as well into Run and Gun to have a chance to fire additional projectiles while moving, as well as the reduced movement speed penalty. Again, is pretty nice for Explosive Shot. Coming down into Tainted Strike with main points for that a lot of increased crit chance. This allows us to have like, I think around 30 or so % chance to crit without any blind. With blind up, it's more like 40% chance with Compose Requiem. So that's why we take that. Heading back down and heading up into Thrill of the Battle with main points, that increased attack speed obviously while surrounded. Since we are running the helmet that always gives us the surround effect, it's a lot of increased attack speed, which means a lot more attacks per second. Then with main points, we will be going into Adrenaline Rush and all these nodes just for the increased movement speed, which is really nice if we killed recently. Heading back down and going up with main points into Frantic Fighter for that insane amount of increased attack damage while surrounded, and we'll be taking pretty much all the increased attack damage nodes while surrounded as well as with weapons at 1 points into Tactical Retreat for the increased move speed while surrounded. From there, we're going to be coming back up with main points into Coming Calamity for the increased lightning damage with Herald of Thunder. I'm thinking about taking this out potentially for something else. If I do, I will update obviously the Mobilytics guide and stuff like that, but for now that's what I'm running, and it kind of helps having that increased lightning damage for resonance uptime. From there, we'll be heading up with weapons at 1 point. I just needed to take this intelligence node just to get the intelligence needed, so that's why I did that. With weapons at 2 points, we will be taking this full crit cluster. The reason why I don't take it with main points is because we really don't need it while mapping. So it allows us to take much more move speed and stuff like that, nodes, right, and like defensive layers with weapon set 1. And then once we go into Requiem on weapon set 2, and get all that increased crit chance and stuff like that to have the best chance possible of critting the enemy, right, and doing all that insane amount of damage. So we'll be taking with weapons at 2 points, Heartbreaking for the increased crit damage bonus and strength, Heart Stopping for the crit chance and intelligence, and then Struck Through for that 1% base crit chance added, which is really nice. Heading up, obviously with main points and a Throat Seeker for the increased crit damage bonus, really adds a lot of DPS overall to the build. From there, we'll be going into Spectral Ward. This just allows us to have a lot of energy shield per evasion rating, and since we're running hybrid, this allows us to get a really nice energy shield pull, so it allows us to have a lot better survivability. And finally, we'll be ending off with main points into the basically jewel socket here. With weapons at 2 points, we'll be heading down and taking all this blind stuff. And like I was saying earlier, like these blind, right, critical hit chance increasing against blinded enemies, like this is a absurd amount of increased crit chance, right? So this allows us to have, like I said, around 40% chance or so once the enemy is blinded, once we go into Compose Requiem, which allows us to have a lot of damage and stuff like that. And then finally, with weapons set 2 points, will be going up into True Strike for the increased crit chance dex, Jugular, crit damage, intelligence, and then these 3 points into Deadly Force for that like 70% increased damage if we've dealt a crit, and the increased crit chance, which is super big. Now we can get into the jewels. So we are going to be running a controlled Metamorphosis jewel here with massive ring on the like radius, obviously lowest cast and elemental resistances as you can possibly get for the negative stuff like that values. From here, we'll be taking Wildstorm with main points because 15% more maximum lightning damage is insane for overall DPS. We'll be taking Staggering Palm, obviously, for the fizz damage and for the crit damage bonus increase. Going and taking Moment of Truth, again, for the increased crit chance that it does provide for us. And then we will be taking these 2 points here because this is 24% increased evasion and energy shield, which is pretty nice overall. So it adds a decent amount of defensive layers. From there, we'll be going, I am running right now just a Time Lost Emerald with just crit chance and damage penetrates lightning res. So this way on weapon set 2, once we flip over to it, we get a lot more crit chance, and that lightning pen is pretty nice for overall DPS since we have a lot of lightning damage value on Requiem. But you could run in this instance like against a darkness with extra damage as lightning, would give you much more damage overall, but this is just what I'm currently running. I had this, it's, you know, DPS increase, I was like, why not run it? From there, we are running a From Nothing with Zealot's Oath. This is going to give us a lot of increased attack damage, right, overall. Each of these nodes here on the claw, like cluster, is 25% increased attack damage. That's why we take it there. The other jewel we are running is a Megalomaniac, which is Beastal Skin. This just allows us to get this without having to spend 4 points and allows us to get, you know, more defensive layers as well as be able to take other stuff on the tree, so we don't have to sacrifice 4 points to take that. So that's why I run a Megalomaniac there. You can run any other defensive nodes if you think there's something better out there for a combination for a Megalo. We are running a Heart of the Well. You want to shoot for damage as extra lightning, and if you can, increase attack speed. If you can get double damage, right, like lightning, fire or something in here, right, obviously is really good, but it's going to be super expensive. So just try to shoot for lightning damage if you can. And then like attack speed is probably going to be the best, movement speed, etc. And then for the one rare jewel that we are running is just going for crit chance, and anything else like crit chance, crit damage, projectile damage, attack speed, any of that is going to give us more damage overall. This jewel honestly can be replaced. It's not that good, but I just run it in this instance because of the crit chance that it offers us. But that wraps it up for this build guide. It's a really nice alternative build rather than just running like LA in the meta junk, right? It's super off meta because it's Crossbow, Deadeye. It feels amazing to play with screen wide clear thanks to Explosive Shot. I mean, we have 100% move speed. We'd have even more if I had move speed boots and Headhunter. We're absolutely melting bosses with Composed Requiem, doing over 20 million damage. Overall, the build is a blast to play, and I think you guys are really going to like it. As always, if you guys did enjoy the video and you're liking what I'm doing here on the channel, if you consider hitting a like on the video and a subscribe to the YouTube channel, it helps me out a ton and it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and in turn, currently that is the best way to support me. I should also be live right now streaming on YouTube and Twitch, blasting through some maps with the build, so if you guys want to come over vibe with me, the links for that will be in the description as well as the comment section of the video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night depending on when you're watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.